Before analyzing the causes of why states treated different ethnic groups and religious groups differently, we must first examine the source of Islamic, Manchu, and Spanish superiority towards non-Muslims, the Chinese, and Native Americans respectively. It will become obvious that the source of such a feeling for superiority originates from warfare when during this era victory in battle gave certain honors.
Στο κατήφαινιο σου νότα, άιντε θέλω να έρθω μια βράδυ.
Islamic empires were religiously and ethnically diverse. For instance, in the Ottoman Empire, non-Muslims such as Christians and Jews were commonly associated within the locations of Balkans, Almeria, Lebanon, and Egypt. The Ottoman Empire used an already established model to deal with the non-Islamic people in which they conquered. Such a model states that the non-Muslim is to be placed within a protected family known as the Yuhgene, as long as they paid adequate tributes of taxes for the emperor. This tax was known as the jizya. If such regulations were followed, the non-Muslim would be permitted to keep their property, religion, and legal affairs, as well as to exist unbothered within an autonomous society in which administrations such as marriages, education, etc., were determined by their appointed leader. Such practices were not favored by the majority Muslim population because they feared the merging of the Islamic faith within the Hindu religion. They therefore supported and appealed to a more direct sense of forced conversions to increase the Islamic population. In basic analysis, the Ottomans defeated their rivals, conquered the land, and incorporated Christians and Jews within their society. The emperor considered mass conversions to be a threat when people were unsatisfied and therefore created the jizya tax system. The source of such religious superiority lies within the reason in which the Ottomans defeated their Christians and Jewish rivals and now spare them death and incorporate them within their society.
After Ming China collapsed, the Manchus poured into China from Manchuria, which is located north of the Great Wall. They seized Beijing and took over China. They proclaimed it New Qing, which means pure dynasty. The Manchus were careful to preserve their own ethnic and cultural identity. They also created laws that outlawed marriages between the Manchus and the Chinese citizens. They also prevented Chinese citizens from traveling to Manchuria and learning the Manchurian language. They also forced Chinese men to shave the fronts of their head as an oath of submission to the new dynasty. Even though Qing rulers made Manchus politically powerful, they followed the basis of the Ming Empire, which was the bureaucracy of Confucian scholars. The emperor was given divine stature.
Conquering a nation roughly half its size, Manchurians in the Qing dynasty continued to feel glory from their conquest over China. In analysis, the Manchus' victory over conquest prompted their exploitation over ethnic groups such as the Chinese.
Late medieval Iberia was a corporate-based society, meaning that people were identified as a group, not individually. Two of these groups were the República de Españoles, which was made up of Spaniards and Costas, or half-breed, and the República de Indios, which was composed of the natives. These groups had different rights and privileges. Social mobility within these groups was limited, and the status in society was dependent on birth. The creation of these groups was intended to separate the Spaniards from the natives, but was not as rigid as expected. Thousands of natives moved to the Spanish cities and towns, adopted aspects of the European culture, and even had children with the Spanish. These children were known as Costas. Likewise, Spaniards often settled in native communities. However, these separations among the groups did widen the gap between the two ethnicities. Within the República de Indios, natives were put into their own self-governing societies that the Spaniards and Costas could settle and even take over whenever they pleased. These communities were supposed to be exclusively inhabited by the natives, but in reality, Spaniards and Costas also settled and even sometimes held roles of leadership. Natives in the República de Indios were required to provide labor services to the government or private enterprises deemed to be of importance to the colonial state, such as mining or agriculture. In central Mexico, the labor draft was known as repartimiento, which provided workers for public work projects, such as the draining of lakes in the Valley of Mexico, as well as for private wheat farms, mines, and other enterprises. In the Andean region, the Mita provided labor to the mines of Potosi and many others. The labor draft aided the mining entrepreneurs and the mines. The labor of natives generated considerable tax revenue for the crown. Another aspect of the República de Indios was that the natives were forced to pay a tribute or poll tax. These tributes were an important source of government revenue, and in some regions continued to be collected well into the 19th century following independence. So while the República de Indios was considered socially below the Spaniards, they played a large role within the society.
In analysis, the República de Indios demonstrated ethnic superiority towards the Native Americans because the Spanish people still considered natives to be in all aspects barbaric and uncivilized, which in turn prompted the two caste groups of República de Indios set up to teach natives of Spanish life and República de Españoles, in which the people already accustomed to Spanish life were given more respect in this aspect. The Spaniards therefore did not feel the need to show respect unless the natives have reached recognizable stature.
Medborgare börja spara, så kan du få råd att fara till Palmas och till Pamplona, och fattas det kan du låna. Ta hand om små barnen, sparade slant, eller sätt ditt piano i pant, gå på ruinens brand. Perom pom pom, perom perom pom, perom perom, perom perom pom, perom perom, perom perom pom pom. Se Spaniens måne lyser på fattiga barn som fryser.